So what's going on, guys? It hasn't been that long since I put out the first video talking about the Kingdom Come Deliverance. Might be woke, might not be woke. We don't really know. It's kind of up in the air right now. And I said, like, the devs just need to shut up if it's not woke and quit making everything worse. Just say, you're not woke, you're not putting DEI in it, and then let it come out and either it does or it doesn't. But with the way that this guy's going about explaining how they're not woke, but they're totally including all this DEI garbage, it makes it worse and it makes everybody think it is actually going to be woke. Now, look, again, I said on a previous video, we aren't quite sure yet. It's a little iffy. It might be a little touch and go. There's some people that are a little bit worried about it. But this guy keeps making things worse. Because, I mean, the original tweet where you can just say, yeah, none of this is actually true, and left it at that. But instead, he has to go on a huge tirade. We went over his tirade in the previous video. If you want, we're not going to do it again. If you want to see it, go watch the previous video on it. But he just couldn't stop himself from going to the DEI Grifter Handbook and pulling out name-calling people Nazis. You know, it's not like we haven't dealt with this stuff for the last 12, 14, 16 years, depending on how long you've been following this. You know, when Gamergate started and they were calling everybody sexist, homophobes, bigots, racist, every name in the book. And at the time, people weren't used to hearing that, so they were trying to defend themselves. Now they're just like, ha, you're a retard, and don't listen anymore. Like, people are done with it. And the people are so done with it, they ignored it the first couple years that President Trump was trying to run for office. They ignored it the 4 years he was in office. And now we're back to President Trump being called a Nazi and every name in the book, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's over. Gamers don't care. People who actually care about anything, movies, TV shows, they don't care about being called names out. It's overused, it's overplayed, it's done, it's over, stop doing it. But he goes back to that page, the same thing they're doing now, and start calling everybody Nazi shitheads. You know, that makes it look like you are on the DEI program because that is straight out of their playbook, where they think if they just call people Nazis, they'll shut up and go away and buy your game. That's not how that works, homie. But he can't help himself, and he keeps going further and further and further into this. And before I read his tweet, Rev Says Desu is absolutely what I believe is a piece of fucking trash. An absolute grifter who has no place in the gaming or entertainment sphere whatsoever. But anyway, I thought this was funny. Two weirdos calling each other weirdos and coping and seething and malding at each other. So Daniel here goes on to say, another grifter. No, our pre-orders haven't dropped because of backlash. They sold return copy ratios the same as it always been. What happened is that the preview hype has naturally waned over 9 massively discounted games entered the charts. Monster Hunter is down as well. Okay, I don't think that means what he thinks it means. But I mean, if you're saying your game isn't going to sell because there are other games people want more than your game, that's not a dub, homie. You know, we're not talking like your game is out and people are playing it so there's less people buying it. We're talking about pre-orders here, people who actually want the game, and it's not even out yet. It's a completely separate thing. But, you know, Rev goes on to say, labeling me a grifter in a video game where I defended your game from being labeled woke over a rumored gay sex scene is wild. Yes, people canceled pre-orders, many did because they want to address the actions of the community manager's code of conducts posted on Steam. Even now, you still avoid the issue entirely. Yes, your game has a lot of pre-orders, blah, 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 blah. I don't care about the rest of that. It's all just bootlicking and sweeping. And what is Rev here talking about? Could it be that the community manager here goes on when somebody says, why is Henry forced to be heterosexual in the first game? Or, you know, maybe it's this one where you're going to say, that was probably me who answered back then. I did not establish Henry as a gay character. Or I did not establish Henry as a character. Let me get that straight. Now that there's the option to be bi, but nobody will be forcing you to play as a bi character, in addition to that, Henry can now also be more of a cat person, because now we have cats. So what they are saying is, they didn't have the money to make all the gay characters they need, but now they're getting the funding from somewhere to make all the gay characters they need, and they're going to do it for the money. If you're doing something for the money and somebody's paying you to do it, that is exactly DEI woke garbage. I don't understand where the disconnect is, probably because there isn't one and he's just coping. But you couldn't shut up about this. You couldn't defend your game. You couldn't say anything other than calling people Nazis and every name in the book. So now here we are, just a couple weeks before, or a week and a half before release, and people are calling your game out for being DEI and woke because you are defending making the game DEI in 2025 when we are literally watching all the DEI games flop. And sure, I'm sure there's a lot of people who aren't paying attention to this, who have no idea what's going on. They're going to buy the game and probably be like, what the fuck is this shit? When you start forcing people to be gay. And you say it's not going to happen, but you're defending the injection of DEI into your game by saying, well, we didn't have the budget then, it was always supposed to be there, so we just made them straight last time, but now we're getting the money. Like, do you even understand how that looks to people who just want to play games that don't have the DEI stuff in them, who just want to play normal games? But you know, of course, this guy has to go and reply to this tweet and this thread about them injecting their woke politics into a game. And he says, I am not a forum admin, you Sherlock Holmes. Are you saying you have no control over your game? No control over any of the employees? No control of what gets published on your official Steam forums? Are you saying that everybody just gets to do whatever they want with the game and you have no say whatsoever? Is that really what's happening here? Because that even makes it look worse. When you say you can't control your employees and they just do what they want, and now there's gayness in it? Now it's being pushed to the fore and a talking point about your game being injected with woke politics, and you're like, well, I don't have any control over what the rest of my entire development team does. Are you serious, bro? Because that goes back to SBI saying that they all extort companies to force the DEI narrative into games, and now it sounds like you're telling us that you have no creative control and that you just put in the game what you're told to because you want the money. But I mean, he keeps going on. He can't help himself but get on Twitter and just expose everything that they're doing. Somebody made a snarky comment. Glad to see you came out and embraced being gay. Explains why you made it mandatory in medieval Christian game. It's not mandatory and it's not a Christian game. Grifterbot. Again, we don't care about the name calling. It's played out. But I mean, I'm glad you say it, because this is the same thing Assassin's Creed did. It's historical when you need it to be, and not historical when you don't want it to be, whichever fits your narrative better. You can't have it both ways, and we're not talking about some piece of armor that might have been 100 or 200 years later, or a weapon designed a little off, or, you know, a flag being the wrong color, or maybe castles weren't that big. We're talking about injecting 21st century politics into games. It has no place in the game whatsoever. Get it out of there. But I mean, this has been nothing but a cope fest for this Daniel guy who seems to think that he's untouchable. And I got news for him. Billion-dollar companies have been brought down by injecting DEI into their thing. We've watched the fall of Disney, to where now Universal Studios itself is outselling Disney. The biggest and oldest name being outsold billions of dollars in flopped movies and television series. Billions! Ubisoft losing billions and more than likely going to be private and sold off. We've watched entire game studios get shuttered because of the DEI games they make and nobody buys it. And this is what you're gonna try and defend here? Like, do you have any idea what the fuck you're doing? Because it doesn't sound like you do. But that's it for this video, guys. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share this one out. Until the next one, guys, be easy like sleazy.